Its own separate structure, inconvenient to get to. Now, next property on your left, another Amish farm. However, they have a business on their property. The fabric store is a great building. Solar panels on the roof, charging the battery in the basement to run her cash register. Maybe the tree coming up. Business phone that she has. Her husband may not use it. He walks from the barn to the end of the driveway to the landline phone booth. And that's exactly where she'll go after business hours for personal calls, to the end of the driveway to the landline. Now, when I was a kid in the late 60s, it's exactly what these house. Now, it says they look like outhouses on the phone that we have there at the Amish village, but I'm guaranteeing you, a lot of old outhouse. Absolutely 100% an old outhouse. Continue to the left top of the hill, you'll see the old-fashioned windmill anymore. It's now generating electricity. In fact, all these had disappeared by 1990 and started brand 2005 to 2010, generating electricity with wind power and solar. The batteries are being charged. Buggy batteries, machines have batteries, cordless tool batteries. Cordless tool batteries snap into LED lights. A lot of Amish still use propane lamps in the house and barn. It'd be nice if they switch over to LEDs, a lot less risky. This guy's a farrier. Now, he's out on the road doing it on other people's properties. He'll get back and reshoot his horse before he finishes the day. That's what he does. That word farrier means reshoeing horses. Now, to your left on the other side of the hill is Route 30. To your right is south. It's one or two generations on the farms. Two in this area mostly. The further south you get, one. So, go north of Route 20 or Route 30, 1 to 3. That's the Route 340. Then Route 340, which is about 4 or 5 miles away, to Route 23. That's 3 to 5 on some of the farms up there. That's the original area. Now, the farmhouse to our right, at the end of the cornfield here, it's the gray roof. That's traditionally built. Now, the center section of the 3 roofs, well, on the first floor, back before 1970, that would have contained a small sitting room and kitchen, or maybe a kitchen, living room, and sitting room. Small rooms. Well, they tore out the walls. They renovated it by putting in poles. It's one big room today. That's where most farmers have they're down picking pumpkins also. The grandparents right now are to the left, the newest section of the house. You can walk from one end of that house to the other inside. There are laundry rooms, laundry lines on both ends. They have their own gardens. Well, there's your 2 generations. All 3 homes on your left coming up, relatively young men with families that work for different companies. The company in which they work sent a crew truck to pick them up at their house this morning. Took them to the job site. We'll bring them back home later this afternoon or early this evening. Right back to their home. It's like having a chauffeur-driven limo to get to work every day. Now, Amish rotating crops. You have to switch the crops in your fields. Every 2 years for Amish. 4 years for English. English use more chemicals on their fields than Amish do. That does not mean Amish don't. They absolutely do, just not as many. Now, we have an English farm coming up. Harvest season, we are in full swing, but it started actually 2 weeks early this year. It started mid-June. Grains, like oats and wheats, were planted last fall. They come to fruition around the end of June, typically. Well, the grain is all gold brown, but the grain is at the top of the stem. That's your money crop. But the stem is straw. That's collected and baled up, and straw is used for bedding for horses, ponies, and mules. So grains make straw for bedding. The grass left and right is alfalfa. That's what you cut throughout the summer to make hay. Hay bales are food. So grass makes hay, which is food. Grains make straw, which is bedding. Now, the fields that were grains, they're now soybean. That will come due probably around the 1st of November. 2 money crops in one field. That is win-win for every farmer. Amish do the same thing, smaller scale than an English farmer. Traditionally, the farm was handed down to the youngest boy in the Amish family. That gives the dad the longest time to farm his property and make his money. Well, families are still traditional, but a lot of boys aren't. A lot of English and Amish boys, they don't want to farm anymore. And I get it. That's 7 days a week. I'd rather work 5.5 days a week doing construction also. Then depending on the size of your property, a lot of these guys will have side businesses also. Raise turkeys, chickens, board horses to make extra money. So when we get to the stop sign here, 3 o'clock Amish, 2 or 1 o'clock English, straight ahead at 12 o'clock, another Amish farm. Handed over 3 summers ago. Now the field in front of us, it has the green in it on the right. That's cauliflower. Well, 6 or 7 weeks ago, it was onions. So he put, 2 crops out of that section of the field too. So the farm, then I don't know which boy got it. Could have been the middle, the youngest, the oldest. But he got married, then him and his wife live in the house with his mom and dad. What do newlyweds do? They start having babies. The oldest one gets to be 8 to 10. That is a good time now to hand the farm down to the grandson, or the son. So, farmhouse, or excuse me, the carriage house on the right has the solar panels on. Now, if it's an Amish farmer and he has one plastic wrapped greenhouse, it is for tobacco. They start their tobacco in the greenhouse, transplant it out in the field, and their tobacco's almost done. He'll pick tobacco is hanging in every barn, shed, and greenhouse that he has. That's why the boards on the barns are opened up. This allows the air to flow through the barn to dry the tobacco. Now, peach season is over, but at the driveway coming up, 3 peach trees at the end of the driveway, picked clean, and then a couple different apple trees further back. And to your right, that red round machine, well, that's not the Amish farmers. Somebody, and that's the tractor, some other Amish guy, not a farmer, has that tractor. Amish farmers are not allowed to have inflatable rubber tires. Single-family homeowners are. Amish farmers, steel wheel or solid rubber tires. So that guy hired that guy to do a process, and we're going to talk about that. He's wrapping plastic around bales of hay. Talk about that down the road. Our first one-room Amish schoolhouse, and school is out for the day, but down here, above Route 23, old orders in both Mennonite and Amish in some schools. It's only opposite. Depending on the number of kids in each school, 1 or 2 teachers, 1 to 3 helpers. They start out 16, 17, learning and helping to teach. 19 to 21 are the teachers. She gets engaged, her career as a teacher is over. The helper becomes the teacher. So, 1 bell, 1 water well, 1 propane tank, 1 backstop for softball. Stone area, teeter-totter swing set, 2 outhouses. Now you throw in a second backstop or a sliding board, you have every other 1-room Amish or 2-room Amish schoolhouse in the county. Amish children, 1st to 8th grade, 6 to 14 years of age. Reading, writing, arithmetic, a little bit of history, and geography. No science or sex ed. Now, the kids are busy learning to read, write, and speak English to deal with the world around them. At one time, they learned a high German dialect that they used to use in church. Not anymore. They speak Pennsylvania Dutch or English in church today. Well, what's Pennsylvania Dutch? Amish are either from Switzerland or other German dialect and Swiss smashed together. They speak a spoken language only, not a written language. So we have recess. Everybody plays. Boys, girls, teachers, and helpers. Typically, when the grass is dry, softball. Occasionally a game of soccer. Grass is wet, stone area is utilized. Game of tag. Maybe a game of volleyball also in the stone area. Lunchtime. Well, the kids sit in same-sex circles. Boys over there, girls over there. They learn this from their parents. When Amish congregate, they sit in same-sex circles. Now, English left and right. Then another Amish home with a dark brick. Then another English home left. Then Amish left and right. So, when Amish congregate same-sex circles, they are very patriarchal. So Amish men and women have their own conversations in these circles. But when you are in a circle, you are facing everybody in the circle. Your back is turned to nobody. Now, Amish have many philosophies and rules, but I'm telling you now, there's a contradiction or exception to every single rule Amish have. And I mean every single one. But philosophies, well, the big one you're going to hear a few times is what they adhere to the strictest. Taking care of one another from womb to tomb, cradle to grave. Amish Tour here on your right. Well, very simply, in school, older kids help younger kids with their studies. That's how they instill it in school. Well, last day of the school year for the Amish kids was 2 weeks before my grandson. This week they started at the same time, the same day. However, Amish kids, they don't get federal holidays. So they get off for Christian holidays and Amish weddings, Tuesdays and Thursdays over the winter. Last day of the school year, 8th grade graduation ceremony. All the parents, younger siblings, and picnic lunches. They have the ceremony in the morning. Separate the same-sex circles, eat their picnic lunches. The fathers play the older kids, school kids, softball the rest of the afternoon. The younger school kids, well, they can be in the same schoolyard or next door in a pasture with the teachers and helpers playing their own games. Moms, the little kids sit in their circles under shade trees watching all this sporting activity. Things wrap up between 4:30 and 5 because it's time for some families to go home and start milking cows. Now, the red brick meeting house coming up on the left. A couple Mennonite groups, very conservative, and Quakers used to call church meeting house. Well, again, there's no Quakers anymore. This is a former Old Order Mennonite, the buggy Mennonites. Diamond plate aluminum, especially if it has a pickup bed in the back. Amish wood painted black. Now, even the Renaissance changed the headlights. Amish went from kerosene lanterns to incandescent bulbs by 1970. Mennonites, 25 years ago, many of them were still using kerosene lanterns. Well, halogen bulbs by 1990 for Amish, LEDs today. Yes, Mennonites use LEDs today also. But a top of the line hand-built buggy, hand-built here in Lancaster County, it cost these Amish families $15,000 to $16,000 for a top-end buggy. Well, what's the couple 5 miles away, Philly? A little bit front left. That's a little bit further to the New York Harbor. But of course, the Anabaptists arrived by ship, either through the harbor in New York or up the Delaware River to the docks at Philly, disembarking. They walked here. Many families kept walking west 3 more weeks to the Ohio Valley, which I believe is either Indiana or Ohio that has the most Amish. They have all kinds of Amish out there. We still, however, have the world's biggest population of the old orders. We have just over 45,000. That's an Amish-owned bookstore and stationery store. I just did a second load of wash today. The boy's wife for the kids. Now, volunteer fire departments. This little town has a big one. And out here, they're all voluntary, and out here, there's Amish in pretty much all of them. They might cook a Saturday meal. Maybe it'll go from 11 to 6 or until it runs out. Well, there might be 400 or 500 people come through that fire department to eat that meal. Helps buy the next truck or more equipment. But January 1st, the Amish here will cook us Germans a traditional meal. Cabbage made into sauerkraut. Pork is cooked into sauerkraut with a side of mashed potatoes. When us Germans eat that on January 1st, that's to bring us good luck for the rest of the year. Now, I personally didn't much like it until I was in junior high school. But I started liking stuff they fed me at school. When I started eating my mom's. Now, do I have it every January 1st? No. Probably every 3rd. But somebody in my family asked me, did you have your pork and sauerkraut? Tonight, throw some in a pot with a couple hot dogs to the Eagles play. Cook it on the stove. Eat some sauerkraut and hot dogs. Now, over there to your left, the trees. That is their property for that funeral or for that cemetery. Well, just like church, weddings, funerals are also at Amish homes. Scriptures are read, prayers are said. There's no eulogy here in Lancaster County for the Amish. There is no embalming here for the Amish, and it's a simple pine coffin. Coffin comes out of the house, goes to the buggy hearse. Wow, now the family exits. Well, depending on who you are to the deceased, depends on the number you get assigned to your buggy. And you will chalk that number on both sides of your buggy. And it's the only time they do this. If it's a child, parents get buggy number 1. If it's an older couple and he passes, the widow gets buggy number 1. Number 2 in the low numbers, they're all immediate family. It just, you get the next number in each family. Then it's the extended family, neighbors and friends at the highest end. Yep, English and Amish go to everything English and Amish when invited. Now, tombstones. Well, they vary in size slightly. They're all the same shape, rounded at the top. Your name is at the top. Well, not only is your date that you were born or the date you died. However, the lifespan is on the bottom of the tombstone and in German. They can say 86 years, 7 months, 11 days. That was the individual's lifespan. Now, the big tall cylinders here on the right, these are called silos. And that cornfield is going to get chopped up and pumped up into those big tall cylinders. It's called silage. That's the stalk, the ear, the tassel, the leaves, everything. Now, this guy's a 2%er. 98% of the Amish guys cut 1 row of corn down at a time in the field. The machine that cuts it will push 8 stalks up the conveyor belt to the next wagon, where the man or boy guides it to the wagon. Quite often, women or girls hold reins for the workhorses and mules for the wagon and the machine as the men stack. Well, the tube closest to you, there's a big wood chipper that gets connected to that tube. The tractor gets connected to that wood chipper. The PTO makes that chipper operate. There's also a gas engine. Fire it up, and the blower, where you feed the corn in by hand, chops it up, then the blower blows it up that tube down into the silo. You'll see white plastic, and that's what that job, that tractor, that machine was doing at that farm. Most Amish farmers do not have that machine or off to the side. The tractor's not used in the fields at all by the Amish. That's the domain for the mules or the workhorses. They will run wagons and machines up and down the road, but the tractor is only used in the barnyard for the power takeoff. Now, This spout, well, he's because they saved the cow's manure all summer and winter. Now they're going to hook their tractors hooked to the pump right now. They're stirring it. They've added water. They're stirring it. They're going to pump it out of that pit by using the tractor. Yep, it smells like absolute poop here, manure, every spring and fall. The other night, I made a comment on Facebook. Oh, I'm sitting out back having an adult beverage. I said, all the ammonia is just wonderful smell. Well, that's fresh country air. It's poop on the ground, not far from my home. So we have another solar panels on the house here, retired couple this time. Now, in a farming community, there's an old saying, you make hay when the sun shines, because the hay must be dry. Now, you mistakenly moisture and wrap it upside out, one bale at a time outside. Only one bale can get mold at a time. But there's still guys that put 50-pounders uncovered up in a hayloft at the top of the barn. Well, it's not covered up there. If it gets mold up there, you'll throw it away eventually. The mold will go the whole way through the hayloft. There's also a safety factor in the summertime. Oh man, when it's above 90, if you leave moisture in your hay, that's not good. Now outside, it's not so bad. But if you know you're going to stick it up into your top of your barn, you better make sure it's dry and you better allow it to cool off from the noonday sun. Because when it's hot and stuffed up into a barn with moisture in it, a chemical reaction can occur within 24 to 48 hours. It will ignite hay bales. It will burn barns, barn, animals, whatever, to the ground. Well, that's a big reason the Amish join fire companies. Each individual property owner does not buy health or property insurance. The bishop buys that, a tiny insurance package, like minimum insurance. Well, the Amish property owners, they tithe 10% of their earnings to the bishop. Tithing's in the Bible, and it's 10%. Well, what if you have a barn fire? Well, we did Thanksgiving Day. 2 boys playing with matches. 2 barns were burned down. Thankfully, no animals, and most of the concrete block survived. So the next morning, Black Friday, the bishop was on the phone. Concrete block companies, cement companies, lumber, and companies to rent forklifts. Well, Saturday morning, 60 to 90 Amish men and boys showed up every day. Of course, they took off Sunday, but Monday till Friday. They rebuilt those 2 barns in 6 days. It is an amazing thing to see in Amish barn raising. They're everywhere, going at it with hammer and nails. Did those boys and men get fed? Yeah, they got fed. Did they get paid? No. That is part of taking care of one another from womb to tomb, cradle to grave. Now, when an Amishman gets a brand new barn built, an Amish construction company comes in and does it. But there are plenty of guys here that have had electric in their barns for decades. How do they get away with this? Well, they have a relationship with an English neighbor. And exceptions. So, let's say I'm your Amish neighbor and you're the English guy. Well, I come and knock on your door. Hey, well, we've been neighbors for quite a while. We're pretty good neighbors. I need a big favor. I'm hoping you can do this. I'm getting a brand new barn built. I'm going to run a brand new electric wire into my barn. As you know, I'm Amish. I cannot have that electric bill in my name. However, if your English electric is in my Amish barn, my bishop really won't care. I will gladly pay you for the bill every month, but it has to remain in your English name. So, if you agree to do it, that's how Amish get electricity in their barns. Exceptions, contradictions to the rules. English farm, he's been farming this farm here, coming up on your right. This farm is now for sale. So he won't be farming in your, probably Amish will come in and buy it. It's a little above average size for Amish. 50 acres is your average. This is 60. Still within, nice size. Red brick house coming up on your left. This is the type of single family home or duplex for Mennonites and Amish before 1970. These dot Lancaster County. An Amish home use electricity off the power lines. Amish started buying English homes at auctions around 1970, and back then you were not allowed to move into that house until you pulled every copper wire out of that house. Otherwise, you might be tempted to use electricity. Well, more and more Amish in the 70s. They started complaining about this process. Well, by the end of the 70s, the bishops changed their minds. You can now move in immediately. You had a year to get with the power company to remove the wire from the pole to the meter. Then, it's the meter alone a decade or 2 later. Today, they're on the honor system. But they retain the wires in their single-family homes. They are always auctioned off to the highest bidder. Always. Great. If the daughter's not there, well, once the great-grandparents get of age where they can't hitch buggies or get around, their house is auctioned off also. You move them back. to a farm, maybe, or maybe a single-family homeowner will incorporate them in. The houses are auctioned off to the highest bidder because 10% of the price of that house over there he can, but not in his home. Exceptions for everything. Meter's been removed. That house has doubled in size. I think that's what could have happened. He might have brought his or her parents. There's a bench wagon over there. They might have had youth group Sunday. Now, the Amish Renaissance. Well, if change changed the bishops in the 70s for tourism, money and milk is what changed the Amish for the Amish Renaissance. Amish milking their cows by hand in this area in the late 50s. On the other side of that hill where I grew up, early 60s. Milk went to the can. The can went to the spring house with the ice blocks, but that's not properly refrigerated to FDA or government standards. So Amish milk has high bacteria in their raw milk. It went to local cheese factories that were here just for that purpose, Amish milk. Now, white stone building with aluminum roof coming up here underneath that tree, that's an old spring house there on your left. Well, the Amish are capitalists. They want to make the same money as everybody else, and they complain about this price difference. Well, the government told them, you'll never make that money unless you accept technology. This is the minimum technology that you need to use in order to be Amish forever. You might think it's the refrigerated milk tank. Nope. That's how they started making the money. It's the diesel. The diesel house. Well, if you have a refrigerated milk tank out in your barn, why not a real refrigerator? Their yard work done quicker. Gas-powered lawnmowers around the ear-powered lawnmower. But there are still conservative bishops, especially over that hill. Push mowers are still used by a lot of Amish. Now, it depends on your bishop whether you can have a walk-behind property. And there are different waterways here. That one's known as the Peckway. Now, when I was first born, my parents rented a house about 2 miles to your left. And this is the new school. I went to kindergarten in the old school up here on the right. But in the late 60s, my parents bought an empty lot in a little village on the other side of that big hill in front of us. And the Amishman that sold them that lot, he lived down here about a half mile or so on the right-hand side, underneath the underpass down here. Well, my father grew up on a farm 2 miles further south. And 1931 was he was born, since passed. But we talk often. There's a difference in Amish farming, Amish milking cows compared to English, but migration. We're more on the east side of Lancaster County right now. South of Route 30, no Amish till 1930. And the farms, they're buying English farms, just like they do today. Every 5 to 8 miles is a decade. Now we're heading east on Route 30 again, or the Lincoln Highway. That Bank of Bergen, I was told, I know Mennonite money started, but I was told also some Amish money was involved in starting that bank. True or not, I don't know, but I can believe it. Now, coming up, we're going to turn off of Route 30 here. And up in the distance, you see some blue and big piles of stone. Well, that's a limestone quarry. We are the biggest supplier of limestone in the state, or Commonwealth, however you want to look at it. But that's one of the big reasons the Anabaptists came here to Lancaster County. Limestone is fertilizer. Our soil sits on top of fertilizer. It makes it some of the most best soil in the world in some places. You can also pull it out of the ground, the limestone, powder it up, apply it to the top. Homeowners, if they have the money and the property size, and of course farmers, this is the building they build today. Because your house, single-family home, is not built to have 20, 30, 40 families in for church. Amish have church in their properties. So it's called a carriage house. The white block or ground floor, ponies, buggy horses. Now he has his area separated for storage. Little rooftop left with the garage door. The bedding and food for the animals with a forklift on pallets in and out. Well, the big back room top right's his workshop. But that's exactly where they had church 5 weeks ago on Sunday. The big back room. Now, Amish families, trampolines, swing sets, above-ground pools. Almost all Amish properties, grapevines and gardens. And there is a black star on the front of the carriage house facing towards the house. Driveway to your left, the box with the window up there along the fence. Well, the scooter there, somebody might be on the phone. That's exactly what's in there, a landline phone. Now, because these families, the farmer next door to them has a phone, they don't have phones. They can walk over and wonder if he slept in. It's a good question. Amish aren't known for sleeping in. So, out here messing with pumpkins. Well, that's what he's growing pumpkins. Amish grow produce. Big cardboard boxes. And over here he has them laying flat. Well, put them on a wood pallet, fill them up, ship them to an auction house with probably an English guy's pickup truck or a trailer. At that auction house, that's where the local grocery stores, or like the big Amish business I'm taking you to, they no longer grow their own produce. They buy their local produce at that auction house. Next guy, he's growing produce also. On the far side of the driveway, out in the field, they're picking potatoes. But coming up on the right, well, he has some pumpkins growing, but you'll see plastic, fresh plastic laid out in big long rows. He has popped holes in the plastic, planted a plant in each of the holes that he's popped. Now, in between the rows, the dirt's been cultivated. It's been busted up. Tomorrow, we're expecting some nice rain showers. So if it rains, the water will sink into the ground right away instead of run off compacted dirt underneath the plastic. There's the plastic I'm speaking of. They're down here. Notice all the kids pop down here. They're all picking potatoes. They've dug them up. Now they just have to pick them up off the ground. The green water tank to your right, the silver white one. Windmills and water wheels were used to pump water. That's for windmills, excuse me. The windmill pumped the water into that water tank, then it was delivered via pipe by gravity. Spigot outside the house and barn. Now, your building rate kilns from the 1700s in different fields around here from cooking limestone. That's the big reason they came here, the soil and the limestone. So in the mid-80s, the state came to all farmers. They asked the Amish to start farming more like English. Contour farm. That's contour farming here on the right, how it goes with the hill. So water doesn't rush down between the rows and erode topsoil. This is what this was about, topsoil erosion and pollution. Keep nitrates, especially your animal fertilizer, out of the fields. Keep them out of the streams, out of the streams. So more contour farming here on your right. So down here in this little valley on the left, the stream, the pasture's been fenced, but not the stream. On the right, the stream has been fenced off. So you're going to see weeds growing up. Well, you can allow your animals to cross directly across the stream. Don't let them meander up and down. They're kicking up the topsoil. So soil erosion and nitrates from their waste going right into the stream when they go to the bathroom. Well, if we get a flood, well, the roots of those weeds are into the bank. So when you get a flood, it'll keep the bank intact from eroding away during the flood. So this is the big reason why they did this in the mid-80s. Not everybody cooperates. It's a voluntary thing. More produce. Now, Amish in the last few years have started irrigating produce. They do not irrigate their fields. If God wants it to rain, He'll make it rain. If not, we'll do without. Phone booth there. Next farm coming up, it'll be on the left. You'll see a small house off to the side of the main farmhouse. Mom and baby are out here. Growing. That baby's a mule, it looks like to me. A mule is a male donkey bred to a female horse. That's a mule. Mules cannot produce mules. You cannot breed a mule to a mule. They have an odd number of chromosomes, so they cannot reproduce. So our stop about a mile or so away. The fish is an unperson now. So you lost your family, all your friends. Nobody would speak with you. Nobody would do business with you. Nobody would do all that today. Their produce comes from the auction house. Their flowers, local Amish or Mennonite greenhouses. Their craft items, other Amish families. The baked goodies, well, the grandmother, her daughters, and other women in this immediate area do the baking for the business. The canned items, the grandmother, her daughters, and granddaughters do most of the canning. The jellies, the jams, peaches, pears, applesauce, red beets, all kinds of things. Now, that's one reason to consider it big business. The other is debit cards. That's big business for Amish. So, they'll accept your credit. Amish don't use credit cards. At least they're not supposed to. I know some Amish do because Amish bring. That's 95%. Well, what about the other 95%? Since the 50s, the bishops these boys go to for youth group have allowed them to obtain a driver's license. They are also allowed to own and drive their own vehicles. They're going to push their rubbish friggin' to 28. These are the boys today that drive the Amish construction company crew trucks. They pick the best. Church is mandatory. If you're not there, people notice. They ask questions. Same thing on the doors. Enough to fit in. There's a 13 or 14 course meal. The bigger families, they can rent, or more well-off families, rent wedding houses. The companies, the Amish companies that own these things, they'll rent with it so you don't have to mess up your. He started this farm. My family sold it in 1875. We're coming back to the station. You get a ride. It's 5 miles down and back. The old steam engine and the different cars that they have, right through the heart of Lancaster County farm country. Been north. So you hop the train here. Depending on which car, it could have a meal, a box lunch being served, maybe drinks to purchase, games to play. Certain times throughout the year they have reenactments and things. If you know anything about kids programming, Thomas the Tank Engine comes in a couple times a year, but this place is packed when Thomas comes in. Kids running everywhere. Again, state of that means they're on the National Historical Registry. Now, when I was younger, and I'm the youngest one in my family. I had an older brother and sister. My guy, she was about 60. She didn't have the money to buy their house. Her nephew, she would come in every other Thursday.